Hi, everyone. It's Antoinette Montalvo for another episode of Montalvo International, Women in Life and Leadership. I am so excited to be hanging out with you guys again. We're just the mission of Montalvo International, Women in Life and Leadership is your will and my will represent his will. And it's just been such an amazing opportunity to connect with so many incredible powerhouse women who are doing big kingdom things and are here to encourage you. And I don't take it lightly. Every guest that I get a chance to connect with, you are going to be very much encouraged by my upcoming guest. And in this series of talking about mental health, identity and purpose, and just the importance of health and wellness, specifically in terms of mental health for women. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, it's Antoinette, and we're back for another episode of My Will, which is Montalvo International, Women in Life and Leadership, in the series of mental health and wellness. And I have an amazing guest, just a woman who is, I can't say enough wonderful words about her, and especially in the realm of mental health and wellness and how she is just so attuned with how to build character and resiliency and positive mental health, but overall just how to navigate some of the mental health crises that people might encounter. Yeah, very much so in the kingdom too, it happens, and especially for women. So Deidra, how are you? Thanks for being here.
I'm doing well, Antoinette. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's so amazing to finally get a chance to have this conversation with you. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, but it's really neat for people to be able to connect with you and to hopefully share a little bit of your expertise. But if you don't mind, just giving a little background of yourself, just so the audience knows who you are, it would be amazing to share what you do and your background.
Okay. I am a licensed clinical social worker in private practice in South Carolina. I've been doing mental health for about 20 years now. But I also grew up in the church. So growing up, I always saw things that I considered problematic within our community, and no one talked about it. No one addressed it. And that kind of pushed me to want to do something about it. So I decided to go into a field that I was actually doing all along and I didn't recognize. As a teenager, I was the one that my friends would come to for advice and would share their problems, and I somehow could help. And at that time, I didn't know that was just God's grace helping me to be who he created me to be. But he took those issues, those concerns, those problems, and gave me purpose. So I created Hope Unlimited Counseling and Consulting as a voice for those who felt hopeless, those who felt that there was no other options for them. Mm-hmm. And it focuses not only on kingdom building, but also on just becoming a whole person, mm-hmm. mind, body, spirit, soul, the whole person. And I got the name from actually when losing my mom to domestic violence in 2003. She was actually in school at the time and she had to write a paper. And my sisters and I joked her that we had the opportunity to get onto her about doing her schoolwork. And so we were editing this essay that she was writing. And the purpose of the paper was to talk about what she wanted to do with her degree and things of that nature. And her statement that stuck out to me was she wanted to let people know that regardless of where they were in life, regardless of their circumstance, there's always hope. There was always hope. So even in the midst of her trying times and difficult life situations, she was always a source of comfort and encouragement to other people. So a lot of people had no idea she was living in an abusive relationship. So I took that statement out of her essay, and that became kind of my purpose in life, to tell people wherever I go that it doesn't matter where you are, where you've been, there's always hope.
Wow. That is just to see that you were able to take very painful pieces of life and transform that into hope. And even, for your mother in that statement, in that essence of who she is, I think that takes a lot to be able to do that. And I commend you for taking that pain and turning it into something hopeful, and even creating this legacy in a lot of ways, this tribute to your mom, but also to be able to encourage other people and motivate other people. And kind of in backing up a little bit, I loved how you talked about just a lot of your impetus was being able to create that holistic point and that holistic health surrounding mental health. And I think that's kind of the big, buzzword right now. And there's a lot of trends towards holistic health, but really understanding that there is this mind, spirits, body, soul connection between health and every aspect, especially between mental health, and just recognizing that, there's many different factors that play into your well-being. And, just as a big disclaimer for everyone on a general front, all of our conversations are really just for educational purposes. It's to be able to have this kind of opportunity to empower. We highly recommend that if there is a practitioner in your life that you can get connected with, that you do that. But just want to throw that out there, that a lot of this is just kind of recounting and giving tips so that we can all have something in our toolkit to keep us going. So, I mean, maybe you can unpack a little bit more for me, Deidra, in terms of how did you go from the step of this horrific situation for your mother to building this business? I mean, what in between really pushed you to say, yeah, I'm good at helping people and I have answers for it? How were you able to actually put that into play, but also, I guess, heal for yourself in terms of maybe even just the process that it was of your mother's passing and everything else that came with that?
Well, I actually set out going into college. I was going into computer science. I wanted to make money. And also one of my idols in life, I would say one of my cousins, who I felt like was the smartest person on earth at that time for me, that was his thing, computer science. So I'm going to be like him. I actually, my senior year in high school, the summer before my senior year, I went to a church youth camp. And my counselor, we were in class one day, and she says, don't just pick a career because you can make money. And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
She said, choose a career that God is leading you to. Choose a career that God can use you to bring about change. And she's like, seek him to see what he wants from you. And that kind of set me on the path of, okay, Lord, I wanted to make a lot of money because that was a growing field at the time. This is the 90s. So I kind of stood back and said, okay, Lord, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? And that's when he started to point out the number of my friends, the number of my church friends who would come to me. And it's like, oh, I'm doing this anyway without any real skill and knowledge base. I just kind of gave him what I had and was a support. At the time of my mom's death, I was had just completed background. And I appreciate God for teaching me how to blend my spiritual upbringing and my giftings in ministry with my education. Because I grew up in a small town in Mississippi, and I was often told there was no place for psychology and mental health stuff. And, I was told you're going to lose your mind dealing with people and all their craziness. You're going to, be burnt out, and there's no money in that. You should pick another field. So there was a lot of discouragement in what I wanted to do. But I took that from the standpoint of they just really didn't understand the field. So I'm grateful that God still pushed me in that direction, because this came from people that I looked up to, people I trusted, people that I felt like knew better than I did. But he never let me walk away from that desire to help people through therapy, through counseling, through education. And so I continued to pursue. But as I was pursuing my education, I was growing also spiritually, and I was able to connect. Okay, wait a minute. The Bible says this: as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Well, my psychology class says
Right.
Everything that a man does begins with a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's some blending here that we're not recognizing. So I really began to research and dig into what were the similarities, what were the complexities here. And a lot of times we didn't look at wholeness. We looked at ourselves from a one-dimensional standpoint. For example, with our health, we would hear people say, watch out for high blood pressure and diabetes and heart trouble and strokes, which was prevalent in the African American community, which was prevalent in my family. But no one said, hey, if your blood sugar level is too high, you can start to hallucinate. No one said if your biological systems get out of order, it can produce other things in the brain that doesn't process things properly, that affects your mood, that affects the way you perceive things and understand things. So when I started to learn that, I began to see that we are a collection of systems, and a problem in one system creates a problem in another system. So I can't just look at myself one-dimensionally. Mental health is, everyone's talking about it now. I'm grateful that we're talking about it. There's less of a stigma, but we don't connect it to our physical health. We don't connect it to our spiritual well-being. We don't connect it to our emotional well-being. And so we, again, cut these pieces in separate compartments rather than looking at them holistically. So my purpose is to help my clients and those that I serve understand that every part of us is connected in wellness. So as I create wellness in one area, I can create wellness in the other areas as well.
Right. And that's so true. I mean, I think that is like the sum of everything that even, I stand for. And we've had these conversations before. And I think that's why I've been so blessed I've gotten a chance to know you, and just understanding in some of my own efforts and initiatives within our community, just recognizing that we're not these isolated pockets of beings, that there's so many things that integrate and intertwine into our health and how we manage it, and what plays into that. And if you can look at the dynamics that influence one thing or the other, I mean, you really can change and shape how you live life. And I think that's so crucial. And I think, as you started to talk about that made me think about, in general, or maybe some of the things that you've seen for yourself, or just what you found in general and speaking to people. What have you felt are some of those biggest challenges or obstacles to not only understanding mental health, especially for women, but even some of the barriers that keep people from, if they do need help, seeking help? Because as you mentioned, stigma is such a huge thing. Especially when you're thinking about your spiritual walk and your belief system and your faith and all these other kinds of things. What do you feel like are some of those big challenges or obstacles that you've viewed for yourself?
Wow, that right there is a loaded question. Yeah. I probably could do several podcasts just on this question alone. There are several things that have stuck out to me over the years. One thing for sure for women has been the fact that we've been conditioned to believe that we're supposed to be all things to everybody. In order to be strong, you have to take on all of this weight and all of this traumatic experiences and being mistreated. And if you're able to withstand these things, that makes you strong. So we tend to hold on to things that we should actually let go of and walk away from, because we don't understand that they're doing more damage than good. Right. So we were taught to be Wonder Woman, but very little emphasis was put on what happens when she gets wounded. What That's happens good. When she hurts? What happens when she takes the uniform off and she takes the cape off and she's no longer bulletproof? When she goes back to being Diana Prince, what does that look like for her then? There's a graphic that I often use with my women in ministry and even some of my clients, and it's a picture of Wonder Woman in full garb, but she's in tears. And And I think that's representative of so many women, because we put on this strong front because we were taught to. We were taught, don't let them see you cry. Don't back down for anybody. You're supposed to be the mom, the daughter, the sister, the aunt, the community helper, the professional, all in one. You shouldn't have to ask for help, or that means you're weak. Life happens to us in ways that we're not always prepared for. So if I'm always Wonder Woman, then being Diana Prince is looked at as being a negative thing. If I'm human, if I hurt, if I'm discouraged, if I'm lonely, if I'm worn down, those things are discouraged because you should be better than that. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we don't recognize that our eating habits cause us a lot of the health problems that we have. Mm-hmm. I can pray and ask God all day, and we've talked about this, God heal my diabetes. But if I don't change my eating habits, that prayer is going to be null and void, because even if he blesses me to get to the point where there's no more insufficiencies in my pancreas, if I continue to eat unhealthy, then I'm going to create that problem all over again. So I have to address natural things from a natural perspective as well as a spiritual perspective. Yes, I can pray for a sound mind. Yes, I can pray for strength and the ability to endure. But there's some natural things that I also have to put in place to, know how to problem solve, know how to cope with stress, know how to handle my emotions as efficiently and effectively as I can, so that as I'm praying and seeking the guidance of God, he has something to work with.
Right. And that's so good that you brought that kind of component up, because I think, again, anyone that may have an aversion to, medicating something, or they think that by medicating it, it's not addressing the issue, but even just having the proper support, the psychotherapy or whatever other additional intervention that you need, someone that you can sit down and talk to and say, you know what, my faith is here, but I also need that extra, wisdom and practical intervention to address this thing. In the same way that you have to work your body out, as you mentioned, you have to work your mind out in the right way too. And,
yes.
We might put it under the guise of, positive affirmations or mantras or meditating on whatever it might be. But really, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about incorporating that piece of, the word or your spiritual background into that, and your faith into also addressing the natural and the supernatural, or the natural and the spiritual level of health, and specifically in mental health too. I mean, I think that's so key.
Definitely. I am a proponent of prayer. My mother, my grandmother, some of my mentors in ministry, where I started my spiritual life was on my knees at the altar. So I do not diminish the power of prayer. I do not diminish God's ability to supernaturally move on our behalf. But what I do incorporate is, sometimes I don't need a miracle. Sometimes I don't need deliverance. Sometimes I need to know how to make a good decision.
Yeah.
And sometimes I need to have the discipline to walk that decision out. There's a place for both of those things. And I don't lack faith if I take an anger management class.
Yeah.
I'm utilizing wisdom because I'm recognizing there's a problem in how I'm handling life, and it doesn't work for me. So I need to have some tools that I don't have right now that have proven to be helpful in addressing this issue.
Right.
So there's a way to incorporate our spiritual practices, even in therapy. I tell all my people all the time, pray before you take your pills. Pray that they do exactly what they're supposed to do. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
We can eliminate some of these side effects and things of that nature. God, let it go to exactly to the point that it needs to go and do exactly what it needs to do. Wow, that's wisdom there, because we know that with any type of foreign substance that we're putting in our bodies, even if it's prescribed, there are some effects there.
Right.
So there's a way to complement each other. We tell, in our profession, we tell our clients all the time, medication is probably step one. Step 2, 3, 4 is going to include some level of psychotherapy, some level of behavioral change, some level of educational components, so that we're not just changing your biology. We're changing the way you think. We're giving you education so that you can be wise to make better decisions moving forward. We're helping you to change some of those behaviors that you've become accustomed to so that you can learn to operate differently. Moving forward. So there is a way to bridge all of those things together. I appreciate that God has given me the ability to bridge the gap between the spiritual and the natural. Because I think that component has been missing so much in our faith communities. We'll get a lot of the, build your hope on things eternal, but how do I live life when I keep getting hit with all of these things? When my family went through losing my mom, it was a very public thing. It was on all of your news outlets and newspapers, and everyone's talking about it. Everybody knew about it, but people also knew what I did for a living.
Right.
So there was, in an instance, all eyes on me to see, okay, what is she gonna do? How is she going to handle this? I'm active in my church. I was youth leader at the time. I'm ministering and preaching and teaching to people. And so they're watching me to like, well, what is she going to do?
Right.
I'm grateful to God that he gave me peace, first of all. But I also had to pull on my own education.
Right.
And I remember calling a colleague and she responded to the emergency call at the time. And she was like, Deidra, I had no idea it was you, but I had to learn to let her do her job.
Right.
Because at that point, I was not the professional. I was not the therapist on call. I was not the volunteer. I was the recipient.
Right.
So she came in and I'm like, Lynn, whatever you do, I'm going to give you free reign to do. And she took my household. She took every volunteer that was there. She stood at the door and was like, okay, we're not having visitors right now. You go do this, you go do that. And she just kind of coordinated my life for the rest of the day. And sometimes it's hard for us to be the recipient of what we tell others.
Right.
I had to learn that I couldn't be the therapist at that point. I had to be the one receiving help. So I tell people, it was God's grace that got me through that, but it was also the wisdom of my education that says, go somewhere and sit down.
Yeah.
Take a moment, catch your breath, use some wisdom. What are the most important things that need to be done today?
Right.
What phone calls need to be made right now? Which ones can wait?
Right.
So it was that moment that I understood some of my clients a lot more. Because at those times when we are most vulnerable, we don't want to appear vulnerable. We don't want to be weak because we're taught that vulnerability is negative.
Right.
But sometimes life pushes us in that direction. So I gained a lot of empathy for my clients because I had to live it.
Right.
I had to take on the negativities and things people had to say, and how could God do that? Believe me, it brought out a lot of questions for a lot of people. Right. But God helped me to grieve in a way that was healthy for me, but was also helpful for my family, because I took on the role of guardian for my younger siblings at that time. So I had to grieve in a way that was healthy for me, but I also had to watch out for them.
Right.
So I had to balance.
Yeah.
I had to balance the two. Sometimes as women, we're taught to put everyone else's needs first. And then if we get to ours, okay. But if we don't get to it, just stuff it back somewhere and it'll go away.
Oh, man, yeah.
And that's not true. You know, I'm grateful that I had a pastor at the time who was also a master's level social worker who would pull me in his office and say, "Have a seat. Let's talk."
Yeah, that's good.
You know, how are things going? How are your siblings? How are you? You know, what do you need from me? And it wasn't from just a pastoral standpoint. And while I appreciate him praying for me and doing those things, he also sat across the table from me as a counselor that says, "Listen, let's deal with the realities here."
Right.
He had to talk me off the ledge of, we go through those, if I would have done this different, or maybe I should have said this, and maybe I should have done this, and all of those what ifs.
Right.
And he just plainly told me, "Daughter, there was nothing you could do differently that would have changed this situation because it wasn't your choice that created it."
Right.
So it took wisdom to kind of say, "Okay, you're right. That makes sense." That lessened some of that pain, but it wasn't, just hold your head up, it's going to be all right cliche.
Right.
He was actually able to address that moment in my life where I felt some level of responsibility for what happened. As women, we don't always get to let ourselves off the hook.
Right.
We carry the responsibility for our families, our friends, our coworkers, our parents, and we carry this responsibility, and sometimes it becomes overwhelming. And that weight results in depression. That weight results in anxiety. That weight results in not being able to function as efficiently as we need to. So when we're able to honestly address where we are emotionally, mentally, even socially in our relationships, when we're able to be honest about those things, then we can take steps to correcting.
Right.
We were taught so long to just be positive, just think positive, in everything give thanks. Well, I may be thankful, but it doesn't mean it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean life didn't, knock the wind out of me. Doesn't mean that the situation didn't affect me in some way. I can thank God I made it through that moment in my life. And I truly believe God conditioned me to handle it.
Right.
I truly believe that he gave me tools in the midst of it. And I tell people all the time, through my pain, I was able to birth purpose.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the pain that brought the purpose.
Right.
I had to learn to allow the pain to heal. How was I going to heal so that I could, in turn, tell this story from a place of triumph versus a place of bleeding on people?
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I mean, just listening to you be able to package it in the way that it has been packaged, I know that even in the help, even in the support, it has God's print all over it, right? Like
Yes.
It has his print all over how he guided you to the correct people that needed to give you the support, who could have the insight, and even for your own wisdom to know when to say, "I can't do this. This is outside of my hands. This is outside of my control." I think that in itself, God finds ways to get his glory always, if you give him that space to do that. And that includes, sometimes having to pull in extra reinforcements. And it doesn't diminish him. Like you said, it doesn't diminish his magnitude and his miracle in his hand, because even as you're telling it, and even with all the things that had to happen in order for you to get to this place, it still is a miracle. It still is a miracle that you were able to take, as you said, pain and turn it into purpose. In my mind, it still is absolutely miraculous, how that's come together and how you have been open and available to him to say, "You know what, God, this is way beyond me. And I need you to intervene in any way, shape, or form." And he does that through people. He does that through, his own understanding of his word. He does that through a variety of ways. And it's so key as well when you have, I think, a kingdom-minded person in your corner who also has an understanding of certain health issues, that a tremendous difference in terms of how certain things are processed and how certain things are taken into effect, because there are situations where it is a little bit more isolated, and it's only being very prescriptive by the book versus seeing the whole person altogether. And so I think that in itself just shows a testament as well to, the type of practitioner he wanted you to be, the type of provider that he wanted you to be, in the realm that you were in, because not a lot of people have such a deep understanding of all those different kinds of things. And I think again, you just sharing your story and sharing the progression and sharing that, there are very real and raw moments that you had to have someone outside of yourself to help you walk through it in a practical way is big.
Yes.
It leads me to ask that question as well of just, for people, whether non-medical or medical in nature, what are some keys, I guess, to embracing it, and even maintaining some level of positive mental wellness or health, or even just understanding how to build that resiliency and character? Because as you mentioned, I think God had kind of already built you to be just able to endure, not to say that you figured it all out by yourself, but what are some ways that people can build up some of that resiliency or that character, or even just having the right tools on your own when maybe you're not able to reach out to someone? And I'm not saying by any means that you shouldn't, but to keep the flow going, to be able to kind of continue to encourage yourself, so to speak, on a practical level.
I think the biggest thing for me is honesty.
That's good.
Honesty with yourself and honesty with the people around you. So often we are taught to respond to that question, how are you? With I'm great.
Yeah.
I'm okay. And oftentimes we don't unpack that. Okay. Are you okay? Okay. Or are you just saying you're okay?
Right.
For
Right.
so long, we've been taught that, no one wants to hear all of that. Just say you're fine and keep moving.
Right.
But if I don't know what's going on within you, I don't know how to help you. So if you're honest with me and say, I'm, struggling with this issue, or I'm having a problem in this area of my life, then I know if I have the skill and ability to help you, or the ability to connect you to someone with that area of expertise.
Right.
But if I don't know what the issue is, I can guess, I can assume, but I can also be wrong.
Right.
And so often honesty is kind of pushed to the side for positive thinking. And we start lying.
Yeah.
That's just we start lying to ourselves and lying to other people. And in the church, we call that having faith. No, there's a difference in saying I'm trusting God to bring me through and saying I'm fine when I'm not fine. Faith would say, I'm struggling right now, but my trust and confidence is in God's ability to bring me through. That's faith. So I have to be honest with where I am. Being able to recognize my own thought patterns and emotional patterns is another key element.
Right. And I think that's so good. Sorry to cut you off, but just thinking about, sometimes we even twist what we think is faith, because one, also the Bible clearly says faith without works is dead, right? And so we create this version of faith that we think is faith, but really like faith is point blank trusting God, knowing that whatever the way, shape, or form that it has to play out, that he's in the midst of it, regardless of the circumstance.
When I lost my mom, just to keep from going into graphic detail,
right?
When she lost her life, her house was set on fire. I'm standing in front of this house, who by the time I got there had been burning for 40 minutes.
Wow.
Give or take. And, I'm praying, God, I know you're with me, so you're going to have to help me.
Right.
And I'm literally standing in front of the house having this conversation with the Lord. You're going to have to help me.
Wow.
Because I don't know how to handle this without being angry. I don't know how to handle this without wanting to strangle the person who I just heard over talking and didn't realize who I was, that this was said intentionally.
Wow.
I have a problem. Not just with the fact that she may not come out, but why this is happening. So you're going to have to help me.
Right.
So faith says, God, even in the midst of this tragedy, you can help me handle it.
Wow.
So he walked me through the grieving process in a way that I still say is phenomenal, because he knew I was going to have to be able to help those around me. Mm-hmm. But my faith wasn't in the fact that he's going to resurrect her and she's coming out all right. That was no longer a reality. But I had to be honest enough to say, God, there's no way she's not coming out. So tell me what to do.
Right.
And he did. He helped me through. And I appreciate him for giving me solid people around me who helped me through, who prayed for me and who talked with me, and coworkers who just simply said, I'm going to bring you lunch. Don't worry about feeding your siblings for today. Or a community that, came, and because they knew who my mom was, people that we didn't even know that were supportive at the time, because my siblings lost everything in that fire. So, the community did come together and that helped. So, there was a lot of people praying, but there was also other people cooking. Yeah. There was people bringing clothes because they had none. And there was people buying toiletry items because there was only so much I and my sister had that, could now handle a family of this many people. So we have to be realistic in how do we address these things from a natural standpoint, and not just trying to do it spiritually only.
Right.
I have to know how to solve problems as well as how to pray.
Right.
So I think that's a big thing for us as women. And being able to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's okay not to know.
And that's because a hard place to be. That's a hard place. That's a hard place.
Yes. We're taught we're supposed to always have the answers because we're the fix-all and go-tos for so many people. So when I don't know, then that means there's something wrong with me. Listen, I'm a therapist and I've been doing this for 20 years. I still don't know some things. And I tell my clients, listen, I'm going to have to research that and I'm going to get back with you.
Right.
Because you're challenging me here. Let me speak with a colleague or let me do some research and we'll pick this up during your next session.
Right.
And it's okay because I'm not God. I don't have to know it all.
That's good.
We have to know what we can control and what we can't. In this time that we're recording this pandemic is knocking people off of their rockers because they have no control over what's going on.
Right.
And that's probably one of the hardest things because, we're told you're going to be prepared for 2 weeks of being at home. And then it was stretched to 4 weeks. And now they're saying 8 weeks. And now they're saying all of these things. So for a lot of people, that's creating anxiety because they no longer live under the guise that they're in control.
Right.
And it's really showing us just how much control we actually have or don't have.
Right.
So if I'm not careful, I can get caught up in all of the news and all of the reports and all of the numbers and statistics, and I can get caught up in all the conspiracy theories, and it's going to cause me to be unstable because you're hearing different things from different people.
Right.
I tell people all the time, sometimes you have to unplug from all that and just focus on what you can control. I can control what time I have dinner. I can control, my schedule for the day. I can decide when I'm going to clean, when I'm going to bathe, when I'm going to do my hair. I can control those things.
Right.
I can't control what the governor or the president may say or what the CDC may say and what kind of orders they implement. I can't control that. Right. I can just be prepared for the possibility of, if I have to be in my home for the next 3 to 4 weeks, do I have enough food? Do I have enough toilet paper, unfortunately? Do I do I have things? Have I been able to take care of my bills? Do I have, the ability to care for my family or myself sufficiently for that amount of time?
Right.
And if not, what resources are available to me?
Right.
That I can control. So part of that resiliency and being able to withstand difficult times is knowing what you have control over and what you don't.
Right. And being okay with letting go
And
when you
exactly.
don't have control.
Exactly.
I think we work ourselves into a frenzy trying to re-grasp control of something that really is out of our control.
And definitely. And one thing that I've found with that, Antoinette, is that when we've been in situations where we felt like we lost control, we tend to grasp control even more in other situations, because we feel like if I have better control, I can limit the amount of harm and pain that comes my way.
Right.
And that within itself is a fallacy, but it makes us feel comfortable. So again, it goes back to that being honest with yourself. Can I really control someone else? No, that's just the reality.
And that again in itself is like, that's that honesty with self and that wisdom. I mean, I could just listen on and on and on because you just ooze wisdom in so many different directions of all of that. And I think that's where that faith piece comes in as well again, but also the practical piece of just saying, you know what, God, I need wisdom outside of myself for the situation. I even need wisdom and I need faith to be honest with myself, right? Like I need to be able to do that. And I think when you were telling that portion of your story, that was so, it was so, I felt the deepness of that when you were just saying, God, I see the situation in front of me and it doesn't look like it's going to be changing in the way that I want it to change. I now need you to help me deal right now. I need you to give me the wisdom of how to deal. And again, I think that's that true understanding of what it really means to have faith in God, to say, you know what, I'm going to still choose to trust you, even in this very horrific situation. And I'm also going to be honest with you to say, my emotions are all over the place. Cause I mean, that's truth, right? Like that.
Exactly.
That would be, it's not so much, the reactions that happen. It's like, what becomes of those reactions after the fact? Do they consume you? Do they overtake you? Or do you really have the true essence of faith and say, you know what, this is hard. This is raw. This is rough. And I need to know what to do. I need to know where to go. And he might say, do this thing for a time, and then he'll meet you, he'll meet you halfway. If you choose to be obedient in this thing, if you choose to use wisdom in, seeking the help, seeking the practitioner, doing whatever the thing is, then I can meet you with that. And I can be there with you and I can be committed to you. And, it just, it's so deep and so rich. And I know that we're kind of at the end of our time. And so I appreciate you sharing and being so vulnerable and being so open in all of this. And if anything, I really, really just encourage everyone who's listening that, don't keep pushing away what needs to be addressed. Get the help that you need, seek the help that you need. Yes, pray as well. And even ask God to give you wisdom of who to get, who to help you get help, who's going to be able to walk you through certain things and certain issues that you need additional. And it's a variety of degrees for everyone. It's a variety of situations. Because God will give you those answers and those plans, and he will tell you, he'll tell you certain scriptures to meditate on and pray on, but he'll also say, I also need you to act on this thing or ask for help, whether it be from the mind all the way down to the money kind of thing. There always is a point that humility, that honesty is going to say, and that even shows that level of dependency on God that I can't control this. I need it to be more than just me that's handling the situation. So Deidra, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, just a point of reference for all those listening audiences. Every piece of information that's shared is it's a tool to equip and to help you. It may not, and it will not necessarily replace your own, medical interventions and your counseling and who you're reaching out to, but it's hopefully to be able to just help you and empower you and support you and just the rich wisdom and the expertise that Deidra has is just so timely, especially in these times of crises that we experience. So before we sign off, Deidra, is there any way that, if people want to get connected with you, if they're local to the area, or maybe a little bit about your business or how they can contact you? I don't know what your client base looks like, so I don't know if you're looking to put more work on yourself, but if anyone ever wants to kind of reach out, how can they get connected with you?
Okay, Hope Unlimited Counseling. You can find us, like I said, here in Lawrence, South Carolina. If you are local, you can reach out to the office. That number is 864-681-3798. We also have a website that addresses www.hopeunlimitedcc, that's the letter C twice, .com, and that lists all of our services that we provide. You can also contact me through a message on there as well. If you're not local to the area and you need to be connected to a professional in your area, I do work with several networks of therapists and mental health providers. And, given the possibility, we can connect you with someone in your area. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us, because our job is I may not be the person to walk you through your journey, but I may know someone who can. So I know that I'm not the therapist for everyone, but I do take pride in what I do, but I also know that I have some wonderful colleagues out there who's doing amazing work, and they're on the front lines of this thing every day, and that they are doing their part in bringing about change in the lives of those around them as well. So feel free to contact us. You can find me on Facebook. Deidra Stewart is my name. You can also find me there. I will say that if you're looking for professional advice, don't connect with me on Facebook, because I will not give it on that platform. But if you're looking for professional advice, you can connect through the website or give me a call on my at the office, and we'll definitely help you address your concerns at that time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Deidra. Thank you for just, sharing the real raw, progress of your story, but also just the hope unlimited. That's going to reign with me. It's going to reign with me, but just that unlimited hope that God can really provide when you truly take your will and his will and match it together to get that brand new will that he has for us as women in life and in leadership and all the things that we might experience. I sincerely appreciate you and just sharing your story, sharing your journey, sharing your expertise to empower someone else. So this is another episode of Montalvo International Women in Life and Leadership. I am your host, Antoinette Montalvo. And again, our mission in My Will, as we like to call it, is where the mission is your will and my will to represent his will. So we hope that you were transformed by this episode, and we look forward to connecting again. Take care, be well, and we are excited to see you grow.